Hey, this is Gilgamesh. I wanted to cover this about who is Saint Nicholas, the man who inspired Santa Claus. So I thought I would cover this. Yeah. This is Wikipedia, and I know I couldn't find anywhere else that had this article. So here we go. Saint Nicholas, Saint Nicholas of Myra, traditionally March the 15th, 207 70 through December the 6th, 343, also known as Nicholas of Bari, was an early Christian bishop of Greek descent from the main maritime city of Myra in Asia Minor. Greek Mupa, or modern-day Demri, Turkey, during the time of the Roman Empire. Because of many miracles attributed to the intercession, he is also known as Nicholas the Wonder Worker. Saint Nicholas is the patron saint of sailors, merchants, archers, repentant thieves, children, brewers, pawnbrokers, unmarried people, and students in various cities and countries around Europe. His reputation evolved among the peers, as was common for early Christian saints, and his legendary habit of secret gift giving, gave rise to the traditional model of Santa Claus, Saint Nick, through Sinterklaas. Little is known about the historical Saint Nicholas. The earliest accounts of his life were written centuries after his death and probably contained legendary embellishments. He is said to have been born in the Greek seaport of Patara, Lycia, in Asia Minor, to wealthy Christian parents. In one of the earliest attested and most famous incidents from his life, he is said to have rescued 3 girls from being forced into prostitution by dropping a sack of gold coins through the window of their house each night for 3 nights, so their father could pay a dowry for each of them. Other early stories tell of him calming a storm at sea, saving 3 innocent soldiers from wrongful execution, and chopping down a tree possessed by a demon. In his youth, he is said to have made a pilgrimage to Egypt and Palestine. See, there was no Israel, it was Palestine. Shortly after his return, he became a bishop of Myra. He was later cast into prison during the persecution of Diocletian. I could be pronouncing that wrong, but was released after the ascension of Constantine. Yep, this is where Istanbul and moving into the Byzantine Empire. An early list makes him an attendee at the first council of Nicaea. I could be pronouncing that wrong, in 325, but he is never mentioned in any writings by people who were at the council. Late, unsubstantiated legends claim that he was temporarily defrocked and imprisoned during the council for slapping the heretic Arius. Another famous late legendary tells how he resurrected 3 children who had been murdered and pickled in brine by a butcher planning to sell them as pork during a famine. Fewer than 200 years after Nicholas's death, the St. Nicholas Church was built in Myra under the orders of Theodosius II over the site of the church where he had served as bishop, and his remains were moved to a sarcophagus in that church. God, I hate having trouble pronouncing words. In 10,087, while the Greek Christian inhabitants of the region were subjected by newly arrived Muslim Seljuk Turks, and soon after their church was declared to be in schism. I think that's how you pronounce it, by the Catholic Church. A group of merchants from the Italian city of Bari removed the major bones of Nicholas's skeleton from his sarcophagus in the church without authorization and brought them to their hometown, where they are now enshrined in the Basilica di San Nicchia. I think I'm pronouncing that right. The remaining bone fragments of the sarcophagus were later removed by Venetian sailors and taken to Venetian soldiers taken to Venice during the First Crusade. Oh. Yeah, so this guy, and it's like, yeah, this goes through the whole, life and legend, family and background. Accounts of Nicholas's life agree on the essence of his story, but modern historians disagree regarding how much of this story is actually rooted in historical fact. Traditionally, Nicholas was born in the city of Parata, Lycia of Pamphylia, the port on the Mediterranean Sea in Asia Minor, and the Roman Empire, to a wealthy family of Greek Christians. According to some accounts, his parents were named, oh my God, I'm going to fuck this up, Epiphanius? Like I said, probably messed that completely, and Joanna. But according to others, they were named Theophanius and Nona. In some accounts, Nicholas's uncle was the bishop of the city of Maida, also in Lycia. According to his nephew's Colin, Nicholas's uncle ordained him a priest. Yeah, he basically traveled, like I said, he's the origin of Santa Claus. And then the Germans came up with, basically Krampus, who's the anti-Claus, because basically if kids, and parents would tell them in Germany, would tell their kids, oh my, if you don't act good, Krampus is going to take you. And essentially that was to scare kids into being good. Essentially, that was the whole purpose of Krampus. Let's get to generosity and travels. After his parents died, Nicholas is said to have distributed their wealth to the poor. In his most famous exploit, which is first attested in Michael, the Ark. Oh my God. The life of St. Nicholas. Nicholas heard of a devout man who had once been wealthy but had lost all of his money due to the plotting and envy of Satan. The man could not afford proper dowries for his $3. This meant that they would remain unmarried and probably, in absence of any other possible employment, be forced to become prostitutes. Hearing of the girl's plight, Nicholas decided to help them out. By being too modest to help the family in public or to save them from the humiliation of accepting charity, he went to the house under the cover of night and threw a purse filled with coins through the window opening into the house. The father immediately arranged a marriage for his first daughter, and after her wedding, Nicholas threw a second bag of gold through the same window late at night. According to Michael, Archimandrite, I'm butchering that, I know, account, after the second daughter was married, the father stayed awake for at least 2 nights and caught St. Nicholas in the same act of charity towards the third daughter. The father fell on his knees thanking him, and Nicholas ordered him not to tell anyone about the gifts. The scene of Nicholas' secret gift giving is one of the most popular scenes in Christian devotional art, appearing in icons and frescoes from across Europe. Although depictions vary depending on time and place, Nicholas is often shown wearing a cowl, while the daughters are typically shown in bed. God damn it. Damn notifications. Get off my fucking screen. Shown typically in bed, dressed in their nightgowns. Where is it? God damn it, I missed it. Okay, here it is. Many renderings contain a cypress tree or a cross-shaped cupola. The historicity of this incident is disputed. Adam Seed English argues for a historical kernel of the legend, noting the story early. I hate words. A station, as well as the fact that no similar stories were told about any other Christian saints. Jonah Lenderin, who also argues for the story's authenticity, I finally said it, notes that a similar story is told in, oh my god, where are these fucking Philostasis, Life of Apollonius of Tyrian, in which Apollonius gives money to an impoverished father, but posits that Michael, the account, is remarkably different. Pausanias does not mention the fate of the daughters, and in his story, generosity is purely motivated out of sympathy for the father. In Michael's account, however, the St. Nicholas is instead expressly stated to be motivated by a desire to save the daughters from being sold into prostitution. He argues that this desire to help women is most characteristic of 4th century Christianity due to the predominant role of women played in the early Christian movement rather than Greco-Roman paganism or the Christianity of Michael, time in the 9th century, by which point the position of women had drastically declined. In another story, Nicholas is said to have visited the Holy Land. The ship he was on was nearly destroyed by a terrible storm, but he rebuked the waves, causing the storm to subside. Thus, Nicholas became venerated as the patron saint of sailors and travelers. The Bishop of Myra. After visiting the Holy Land, Nicholas returned to Myra. The Bishop of Myra, who had succeeded Nicholas's uncle had recently died, and the priests in the city had decided that the first priest to enter the church that morning would be made bishop. Nicholas went to the church to pray and was therefore proclaimed the new bishop. He is said to have been imprisoned and tortured during the great persecution under the Emperor Diocletian, ruled 284 to 305, but was released under the orders of the Emperor Constantine the Great, ruled 306 to 337. This story sounds plausible, but is not attested in the earliest sources and is therefore unlikely to be historical. One of the earliest attested stories of St. Nicholas is one in which he saves 3 innocent men from execution. According to Michael, 3 innocent men were condemned to death by the governor of a state. Okay, I am bad at saying these names. Eustathius. As they were about to be executed, Nicholas appeared, pushed the executioner's sword to the ground, released them from their chains, and angrily chastised a jury who had accepted a bribe. According to Jonah Lenderin, this story is directly parallels the early story of Philosopher's life. Okay. In which Apollonius prevents the execution of a man falsely condemned of banditry, I guess. Michael also tells another story in which the consul, where are these names? Accepted a bribe to put 3 famous generals to death, in spite of their actual innocence. St. Nicholas appeared to Constantine and in dreams, informing Constantine of the truth and frightening Ablius into releasing the generals for fear of hell. Yep. Later versions of the story are more elaborate, interweaving the 2 stories together. According to one version, Emperor Constantine sent 3 of his most trusted generals named Urius, Nepotanius, and Herpelinian to put down a rebellion in Phrygia. Fucking goddamn it. However, a storm forced them to take refuge in Myra. Unbeknownst to the generals who were in the harbor, their soldiers further inland were fighting with local merchants and engaging in looting and destruction. Nicholas confronted the generals for allowing their men to misbehave, and the generals brought an end to the looting. Immediately after the soldiers had returned to their ships, Nicholas heard word of the 3 innocent men about to be executed, and the 3 generals aided him in stopping the executions. Eustathius, I think that's how you pronounce it, attempted to flee on his horse, but Nicholas stopped his horse and chastised him for his corruption. Under the threat of being reported directly to the emperor, repented of his corrupt ways. Afterwards, the generals succeeded in ending the rebellion and were promoted by Constantine to even higher status. The 2 generals' enemies, however, slandered them to the consul, telling him that they had not nearly put down the revolt, but instead encouraged their own soldiers to join in. The generals enemies also bribed and he had the three generals in prison. Nicholas made his dream appearances and the three generals were set free. The Council of Nicaea in 323, Nicholas is said to have attended the first council of Nicaea, where he is said to have been a staunch opponent of Arianism, a devoted supporter of, Trinitarianism. One of the bishops who signed the Nice Creed. Nicholas' attendance at the Council of Nicaea is attested early by Theodore the Lector list of attendees, which records him as the 151st attendee. However, he is conspicuously never mentioned by Alexandria. Anathanius of Alexandria, the foremost defender of Trinitarianism at the council, who knew all the notable bishops and of the period, nor is he mentioned by the historian Ebrius, who was also present at the council. Adam C. English notes that the list of attendees at Nicaea vary considerably, with shorter lists only including roughly 200 names, but longer lists include around 300. St. Nicholas's name only appears in the longer list, not the shorter one. Nicholas's name appears on a total of 3 early lists, one of which, Theodore the Lector, is generally considered to be the most accurate. According to Joan Lendrin, there are 2 main possibilities. One, Nicholas did not attend the Council of Nicaea, but someone at an earlier date was baffled that his name was not listed and so added him to the list. Many scholars lend to favor this explanation. 2, Nicholas did attend the Council of Nicaea, but at an earlier date, someone decided to remove his name from the list, apparently deciding that it was better if no one mentioned he had been there. A later legend, first attested in the 4th century, over 1,000 years after Nicholas's death, holds that during the Council of Nicaea, Nicholas lost his temper, slapped a certain Arian across the face. There's the word Arian. On account of this, Constantine revoked Nicholas's mitre and pallium. I probably mispronounced those. Stephen C. Graidanus concludes that because of the story's late attestation, it has no historical value. Jonah Landrin, however, defends the veracity of I said this word before. I'm going to pronounce it when my brain quits turning to mush. Of the incident, arguing that as it was embarrassing and reflects poorly on Nicholas' reputation, it is inexplicable why later hagiographers would have inverted it. Later versions of the legend embellish it, making the heroic heretic Arius himself and having Nicholas punch him rather than merely slap him with his open hand. In these versions of the story, Nicholas is also imprisoned, but Christ and the Virgin Mary appear to him in his cell. He tells them he is imprisoned for loving you, and they free him from his chains and restore his vestments. The scene of Nicholas slapping Arius is celebrated in Eastern Orthodoxy icons and episodes of St. Nicholas at Nicaea are shown in a series of paintings from the 1660s in the Basile di San Nicola in Bari. Other reputed miracles. This is a long one, people. I wanted to do this because I wanted to get this who he happened to be. One story tells during a terrible famine, a miraculous butcher lured 3 little children to his house where he killed them. Placed their remains in a barrel to cure, planning to sell them off as ham. Nicholas visits the region to care for the hungry, saw through the butcher's lies, and resurrected the pickled children by making the sign of the cross. Jonah Lenderin opines that the story is without any historical value. Adam C. English notes that the story of the resurrection of 3 pickled children is a late medieval addition to the legendary biography of St. Nicholas, and that it is not found in any of his earliest lives. Although the story seems bizarre and horrifying to modern audiences, it was tremendously popular throughout the late Middle Ages and the early modern period, and widely beloved by ordinary folk. It is depicted in stained glass windows, wood panel paintings, tapestries, and frescoes. God damn it. Eventually, the scene became so widely reproduced that rather than showing the whole scene, artists began merely depict St. Nicholas with 3 naked children and a wooden barrel at his feet. Yeah, that doesn't look good. According to English, eventually, people who had forgotten or never learned the story began misinterpreting representations of that St. Nicholas was shown with children, led people to conclude that he was the patron saint of children. Meanwhile, the fact that he was shown with a barrel led people to conclude that he was the patron saint of brewers. According to another story, during the Great Famine that Myra experienced in 311 to 312, a ship was in the port of Anchor loading with wheat for the emperor in Constantinople. Nicholas invited the sailors to unload part of the wheat to help in the time of need. The sailors at first disliked the request because the wheat had to be weighed accurately and delivered to the emperor. Only when Nicholas promised them that they would not suffer any loss for their consideration did the sailors agree. When they arrived later in the capital, they made a surprising find. The weight of the load had not changed, although the wheat removed in Myra was enough for 2 full years and could even be used for sowing. So yeah, I just wanted to talk about this a bit, about Nicholas. You can read more about him, you know. But yeah, I just want to talk about this. This is Gilgamesh. You can find me on Odyssey under Gilgamesh, Rumble under Panzer Dragon, and BitChute under Gilgamesh 1. I will talk to you later. Bye.